Welcome to the Burgundy and Gold Knuckleheads podcast. As always, you know who's riding shotgun. It's my main man, Reggie. What's going on, Reg?
Kenny J, what's happening, man?
Man, just making it through the summer, man. The summer's, well, we're past Labor Day now, right? So does that mean summer's officially over?
I think so, man. I think for a lot of people, summer is over. School has started for a lot of people, and I think for the most part, I think this is if school has not started, this is the week that school will start for a lot of people. So I'm gonna say, yeah, officially over, man. In fact, and for us, that means it's game week, right? So it's game week, and here we are, man. We are officially summer's over, school's back in, falls around the corner, and yet here we are. NFL is back.
Yes, it is football season, and as you said, depending on where you are in this country, school's back or not back or about. Maybe just a couple days in. This past weekend, we saw some college games. Kind of
College
kicked
football.
off. I did go to a high school football game this weekend, this past Friday, and watched some, as they say, Friday night lights. And man, the lights are about to shine bright on the NFL now. It's a good
well, I
it's a
didn't.
good time.
Well, I didn't get a chance to watch any high school football, or I didn't even really get to do any much college football. Actually, man, your
Yeah,
boy was on vacation. For
right.
those that are watching on YouTube, I look a little more chocolatier. Your boy got a little sun, so at least I think
Man,
that's what it is, man. I don't know.
going
I don't
all
know.
around the world, you know?
so got a little tan. It wasn't on
Yeah.
purpose. It just happened, man. You can't escape the sun when you be out and about on vacation, man. But we back. We made it back in town just in time for week one, as our beloved Washington Commanders take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, and we're going to talk about Tampa Bay and the upcoming season. But one of the things that caught me today on the news was, I guess, I'd have to think here for a minute. But is this the first, I'll say long term, being more than 1 or 2 year contract? Is this the first beyond 2 year contract that Adam Peters is given? Sam
Well,
Cosmi signing today.
well, a lot of the free agents, the big free agents, the Dorrance Armstrong, the Frankie Louvu, they signed 3-year deals.
Okay. Okay.
But what this is the first guy that has an extension that is a current player that has been extended the official contract um, of the new regime, the Adam Peters, Dan
Yep.
Quinn, Josh Harris group. Just like Jahan Dotson was the first player drafted as a Washington Commander, Sam Cosmi is the first player to have received an contract extension, as a player under this new regime. So there's a little something for him, man. And congratulations to Sam, man. I think
Yeah.
being picked in the second round out of Texas 3 years ago, he's become what we thought he would be. Now, granted, there was people thought he shouldn't have been drafted as a tackle, but credit to Ron and those guys for moving him back inside as a tackle, and he has really progressed quite nicely as an NFL guard. And I think I think obviously his contract that they extended him with is proof of that. I should have did the numbers here, but what I liked about the contract is between Sam, but not only just Sam and also the front office, it wasn't to make him the highest paid guard.
Right.
And I think a lot of credit goes to Sam and his crew for that. Unlike Brandon Sheriff, right? Brandon wanted to be the highest. Sam, he got handsomely paid,
Yes.
but he wasn't trying to break the bank here,
Right.
I'm happy for that.
Well, and it also, when you look at the turnover of Ron Rivera free agents and draft picks, this is the one of the few that are still on the team and has performed well and is getting a contract out of it. Um, and really the only one, right? Has any other? I don't think any other Ron Rivera um, draft pick has had an extension. He wasn't here long enough for most of them. They're on the verge of being able to get extensions, but they were either traded or cut. Um,
Right.
so this is the first one really of any Ron Rivera's players
Well, there were
that
others who
we've
were
re-signed,
eligible. There were others who were eligible,
right?
but
Like
they
Cam
either
Curl,
wanted to. Cam Curl,
right?
there's Montez Sweat and Chase, those guys. But they let them play out their contract, and then they weren't re-signed. That Montez was traded, but Chase was traded as well.
Yeah,
But these guys were on the last year of their deal, so they were traded as opposed to extended.
right.
Um,
And that's my point. He's the only one so far that
Correct.
has played or plans of playing for the Washington Commanders beyond the initial contract.
That is
Um,
correct. That
so
is
that's,
correct.
I mean, good for him, but that's not a high. That's a lot of swinging and missing there.
Well, that was evident based on the turnover of the roster. I think they
Sure.
said 60 new players or something crazy like that. So
Yeah.
so we knew that they cut loose a lot of the players from Ron and his staff, man. And we won't get into that. I mean, we've it's time to turn the page on that. I think if you're a fan of this team and has been a fan, we all know that there was a lot of swing and misses by that coaching staff. And John Dawson was the latest, right? And
Right.
we've
Yep.
already talked about that, but it's time to move on, man. And it's what
Yep.
Adam Peters and those guys are doing now. They're bringing in their type of guys. The draft that we just had earlier this year seemed to be a solid draft. I think a lot of those guys will be key contributors. And so, like anything else, though, we'll know what this draft class will be in the next 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So, till then, hey, congratulations to Sam Cosmi, man. Hopefully,
Yeah.
he's not the
Drinks
last.
are on Sam today. If you see him at a bar, uh, tell him he owes you a beer. Um, but that kind of moves us on and gets us ready for week one. Week one, we are on the road playing Tampa Bay. Unfortunately, it's a late game. It's a 4 o'clock Eastern time. For those that don't already know, Reggie and I like the early 1 o'clock Eastern time games.
Yes, we do.
Um, but playing Tampa Bay last year uh, went 9-8. They won their division. 9-8 was the worst record to win their division in the NFL last year. Um, and it was the first, I guess it was a rejuvenation or second chance for Baker Mayfield. Um, and Baker Mayfield had a good year. It was for his time at Cleveland, and then he had a year. Well, I guess he shared time between Carolina and the Rams. Um,
Mhm.
this was by far his best year last year. It was he threw just over 4,000 yards. It's his only year of throwing over 4,000 yards. It was also his highest completion percentage year. Nothing great, but 64% completion rate, and his TD to interception rate was 28-10. So that's very respectable there. Is he going to be that quarterback again this year, Reg?
I'm gonna say no. I'm not a believer of Baker Mayfield.
Right,
I've never been a big fan of Baker Mayfield, and his time in the NFL hasn't done much to change my opinion of him. He obviously flamed out in Cleveland, and to your point, he didn't latch on in Carolina for whatever reason. I know Carolina was a mess,
right,
but he didn't latch on in Carolina, and then he kind of got some PT in LA with Sean McVay, and then he wound up in Tampa. And in this day and age, I think mediocre quarterback play will make a team pay a guy, right?
right.
And Baker looked the best he's ever looked as an NFL player, and Tampa was looking for somebody to come in and play after the retirement of Tom Brady. So Baker landed in a good spot. He played well enough and got him a contract out of it. But am I sold that Baker Mayfield has turned the corner and is going to be that steady quarterback for an NFL team for the next few years? Nah, I don't think so. But hey, I've been wrong before, man. You know, I've been wrong before, but he doesn't scare me.
Right.
And, obviously, if our defense doesn't play well enough to put the pressure to make Baker look like the old Baker, then yeah, they have enough weapons down in Tampa to make a team pay. But no, Baker Mayfield doesn't scare me. Now we have to contain him, and we have to make sure that we do our part. And then there's the Mike Evans aspect of it. But no, I'm not too worried about Baker Mayfield personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't want to call Baker Mayfield a bus driver necessarily, but he's not going to. I don't look at him and think, oh man, he's gonna take them. You know, it's a they're down by 10 with 5 minutes to go, and they got to score once quick and then come back and then score again. I don't see Baker Mayfield being that quarterback. Uh, but I think he's a little bit better than a bus driver. And so, that's going to be on the coaching staff. He's got a good team around him. I mean, uh, Tampa didn't have a lot of changes at key positions from last year. So, it's the same quarterback, running back, wide receivers for the most part. And kind of what you see is what you get. Maybe a little bit better because they're all in the same system again, all playing together. But while they are a decent team, I don't think Tampa Bay is going to be a team that scares anybody this year by any means.
No, no, they're not. I mean, and again, they were the best team in a terrible division last year, right? I mean, the
Right.
Saints were terrible, the Panthers were terrible, and the Falcons were terrible. So somebody had to win the division, right? They're
Right.
just like how we were a few years ago when we won the division at 79 on the Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
Somebody had to win the division, and Tampa won it, but Tampa was not a really great team in my opinion. Um, Obviously, they have a strong defense. They do have weapons on offense. Let's not be disrespectful to them,
Right.
but they're a solid team. Defensively, they're pretty good defensively, and everyone keeps talking about Todd Bowles, his defense, and what he likes to do with rookie quarterbacks and all those types of things. And look, man, look, all of that may be true, but I've said it before, and I will continue to say this reminds me of the 2012 year when RG3 came in. We played the Saints on the road in New Orleans week 1 and shocked the world. And the reason we were able to do that is because the Shanahans didn't show much in the preseason,
Right.
and they unveiled some things which obviously has turned out to be the RPO uh, type of play. And you have a situation where there's no tape,
Right.
right? Even though people knew that the Shanahans like to do the zone, the zone read stuff, right? Everyone knows what Cliff likes to do, but they've not seen Cliff with this team. So there's the shock factor. There's
Right.
the unknown that Tampa doesn't know what to expect from a Cliff Kingsbury offense as a Washington Commander OC. And so from that perspective, man, we have that as an advantage for us. We know what Todd Bowles like to do. There's tape on Baker Mayfield. There's tape out there for these. There's no tape on Jayden Daniels. There's no tape on a lot of our players on our offense in this system.
Right.
So there is that, man, and I think that could be the deciding factor at least this game. If we're playing Tampa in week 5, 6, that's a little bit something different. But they're playing us in week 1, and hell, we don't even know.
Yeah.
We don't even
Yeah.
know what we're going to look like.
Yeah. I mean, I look at Tampa Bay and say, you know, take away the 5 or 6 best teams. Um, Everybody else, they could win, they could lose. You know, The really bad, the two or three worst teams, yeah, they probably beat them because they're a solid overall, a veteran team. So they're going to be, say the bottom 4 or 5. But everybody in the middle, I think they potentially beat or potentially lose to. It depends on how the opposing team plays, and as well as how they play. Um, so
I'm not even sure that Tampa wins the division this year.
I would
Personally,
agree.
right? But on paper, they're a better team than us, and I understand why they would be a better team than us.
Sure, sure.
But but again, we have the surprise factor, which is the unknown going into week one, and they're catching us. Obviously, the first team out the gate, they get the honors.
And so um from a defensive perspective, I know there's we've had in past years, as we've and really we've been wrong, is we've said for the last, basically the whole Ron Rivera era, was defense is going to carry us, right? Defense is going to have to carry us while our offense comes up to speed. Well, you know, no matter how good the or bad the offense was, the defense was never any better, right?
Okay.
Uh, and so I don't know. I think I'm interested to see where we go. I think this is on offensively and defensively is much better coached team.
We have to
And
go up, right? We were the last place defense in the league last year, right? So we have nowhere to go but up. The
but
question
but
is
but
how
it, but
far
it, but
up?
it's how much up, right? Is it
How
a
much up?
is it a noticeable difference? I think if you take last year's staff across the board and put this entire I'm sorry, take this year's coaching staff, put it on last year's team, exact same players, even the players that all got cut. I think last year the Commanders win an extra game or two. They're not going to the playoffs. I'm not going to put them there, but they win an extra game or two just because of coaching, making the adjustments, doing the things that you do. Pretty much all the coaches last year are still out of a job or a remedial job in the NFL, right?
Okay.
So I mean that tells you something when the NFL turns over coaches, at some perspective. We've got coaches on our team that have had, our head coach and offensive coordinator are retreads, right? So if
Yeah.
people think that you still have a skill set, they're going to hire you in the NFL.
So we've had some coaches get signed on.
Pardon me,
I've seen them. I've seen them. They've got signed on.
but not the big names, right?
Well,
Offensive
not our
coordinator, defensive
not our
coordinator,
deep
coach. Um,
well
yeah,
position coaches, but no the coordinators, head coach, and our two coordinators are no longer in the NFL.
correct.
Right.
Um, and then on top of that, you take all the improvements. And while not everything is we didn't go for the home runs, but I think we got a lot of base hits and doubles on our acquisitions. Defensively, a couple defensive ends that we brought in, linebackers we brought in, and it's going to be a different team. It's going to be a different approach, a different attack, and I think a team that also makes adjustments during the game. You don't wait until the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden you seem to make an adjustment finally um, at that point. And offensively, you know, once again, we say it every year. It's gonna be while normally we don't want to put a lot of burden on a rookie's shoulders, I think we can't help it this year because I don't know that the staff around, not that it's not solid, but who's going to take the pressure off of him, right?
Yeah, yeah. I listen. I don't think the recipes for success this year is any different than any other year. They're going to go into this thing, and they've already said it, right? We don't want nor expect Jayton to have to carry the team. They tried to put some help around him, and they want to run the ball well and play good, solid defense. Right. This is the same recipe we've had for Washington's success year in and year out. They're not going to ask Jayton to go out and try to be a superhero. Now, they're expecting him to be able to make some plays. There's a reason you drafted him. They think that he can cover up some mistakes. But their recipe, and they've said it, they want to play good defense. They want to run to the ball. They want to ride violently. They want to, strip the ball, get the takeaway. Ball is life. On the defensive side, they want to do sound tackling, turnovers. And then on the offensive side, they want to run the ball. They want to control the ball and allow Jayton to be able to make some plays. Insert quarterback name, and that's been the recipe for year after year after year. The difference is, I think we all feel confident that they're going to be able to execute that game plan at a better rate than we have in years past. But at the end of the day, if we still don't have a good enough defense, a la corners, we can't get a pass rush, right? So therefore, we can't get off the field defensively. Now you're going to have the offense to try to score points. If for some reason now the tackles, which were question marks, do not hold up, right? Now you don't have a good running game, and now you got to ask the young quarterback to throw the ball. If all of that happens just like it has in the past, then nothing's going to be different this year. But we as fans, I think, have confidence that they have hired the right people to execute that plan, and therefore we expect the results to be a little bit different this year. But it's the same game plan.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't want to go too far because we're talking about Tampa Bay and week one right now. We will when we finish that, we're going to go to our season predictions and I can even expand on some of this when we talk about season predictions and how we look not just for Tampa Bay but down the road. But I agree. Week one, really the first couple weeks, if Washington plays a solid, crisp game, I think they could walk out with a couple wins just because people don't know how to play against them. They don't know what they're gonna do. Now it's easier to predict what Washington defensively is going to do. Not that they're going to do exactly what um, Seattle did defense wise, or Atlanta did defense wise, or what the Cowboys did defense wise, but there's similarities on how the defense approaches, blitz packages and how much nickel you're playing, dime, cover two, whatever that is. A lot of that is going to be still the same base of what the Commanders' defense is going to be coming up this year. So, but with that, Reg, it might be the first time. It might be that time for the first time of 2024. Are you ready?
I'm not, but go ahead.
Oh, there it is. The favorite of so many listeners. What's your name? What's your number? And for those that haven't listened in the past, what's your name? What's your number? It's a confidence level. It's a confidence level that that the Washington Commanders are going to walk out with a win. And I'm sorry, everything okay here?
Yeah. I just want to turn the volume up a little bit.
With how much the Commanders are going to walk out with a win on a scale of 1 to 10. So clearly, anything under a 5, you don't have a good feeling. If you're at 9 or 10, man, it's a lock, right? And there's a lot of excitement going into this season. But I think everybody got a little bit of I'm going to say a reality check in when Dotson was traded. I think that kind of changed things for everybody. People that were high as a kite, all of a sudden we're coming back down and going, okay, we still gonna have a good year, but there's a lot of people had high expectations for Dotson this year, so that's a big letdown as we come along. But Reg, I'm gonna let you go first. What's your number of Washington pulling out a win this year, or I'm sorry, this
Oh,
week, coming week against Tampa Bay?
ah, man. Yeah, as you can see, I'm in preseason form here, man. My confidence number in that we win this game, and it's right in line with kind of what I said about the season and a little bit about Tampa. Tampa's expectation against us, and I'm going to say, because there's so much of an unknown, I am going to give my confidence number. I'm waffling a little bit here, but I'm going to give it a 7.
A 7.
I'm going to yeah.
Wow, nice, nice.
I'm going to give it a 7, but it's not a strong 7, all right? I'm a little concerned about that 7.
Yeah, I forgot. I personally forgot about your strong 7 versus your weak 7.
well,
Rather just
because it's a
being a 7.
7. It's a 7, and I don't feel totally confident as I said. I'm not saying it
Okay.
with my chest. I'm saying a 7, but it's not with my chest here, man. You know, I wouldn't put a lot of money on it. That's what I mean.
Okay.
I might. There's sometimes I might say that's a solid 7, man. I'll put some money on that. This one, I'm
Right.
like,
Right.
I don't know. I wouldn't be confident to put money on that 7. But
I mean,
my thing, my
if you slid back to a 6, would it be a confident 6
I don't know.
versus a soft 7? I don't know. I don't know what the
I
difference
don't know,
is.
man. But listen. At the end of the day, I think we have enough talent to compete with what I call an average Tampa Bay team. And then I think that makes us both a little bit equal, in my opinion.
Right.
Because I think with all the off-season moves, the changes, the coaching staff, and everything that I think we will be, I think we're good enough to play with Tampa. And what gives me the slight edge to book that up to a 6.5 or 7, but I'm going to stick with the 7. It's simply because I think it's the unknown, and I keep talking about the unknown. And I think that's the surprise factor that gives us the edge that can surprise and sneak out of Tampa with the win that will kind of surprise most people around the league.
Right.
So because outside of that, I think for the most part, with all our offseason changes, I think we can compete with Tampa. And
Very
so
good.
that's why I say I don't give it a solid 7, but I'm gonna go with a 7. And I feel confident that we win the game.
Well, I like it. I like it. Um, I I I have I have a couple concerns. Um, I think if I'm from a prediction perspective, if we can keep Evans from just going off, 11 catches for 155 yards and 2 TD type of performance, um, I think we're definitely in this game. And I think the longer we're in this game and we have some offensive success, not that we're going to we need to score 35, 40 points, but we're moving the ball, we're getting field goal, we're getting touchdown, another couple field goals, we're moving the ball. The longer we stay in this game and the more that Jaden Daniels feels comfortable, feels the excitement, um, I think it leads to a Jaden Daniels moment, right? Breaking one for with his legs and taking it for a TD, or just picking up, a couple back breaking first downs with his legs. Um, and the longer the game goes on, where we are in the game or ahead of the game, the better the chances are of those types of moments potentially happening. And I think it can and very well may end up happening. My confidence level is at a 6, but it's instead of a soft 7, I'm at a strong 6. Um, and I think because of the surprise, uh, the Jaden Daniels factor, um, we'll see what happens and pull away, hopefully with a win. But I think we're definitely going to be in this game without a doubt.
I think so. I think we sneak out and steal one. I think we
Yeah,
steal this game from Tampa. Surprise Tampa, and I think we surprise the league with it.
absolutely. We'll be walking away with a win, especially if it's a double digit win, 10, 11 points. I know that's stretching it, but if we were, there'd be a lot of talk about Washington uh, after just one game. Probably more hype than what they should be getting, but there's going to be a lot of excitement nationally as and definitely in DC walking out with the win.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. Agreed.
And and with that, uh, let's circle around and continue to talk about Washington in the season, but um, beyond just the Tampa Bay game for the season. What are some of your expectations of the season and also predictions? Right, we're gonna finish this with a prediction of the season of what we think the record is going to be. Um, and and if the record, I mean, obviously, if you're going to the playoffs, it's a successful year. But sometimes you can not make the playoffs, but from where you started, it can still end up being a successful year.
Well,
Yeah,
sounds
not as
like
good as
you're
what you want, but you can still find successes and things because you've got something to build off of.
sounds like you already got it, man. Go ahead and give your prediction.
Well, I will say, that there's a lot of hope, obviously, about Jaden Daniels, and the city is needed a quarterback that we can count on for the first contract, and we would love to give a quarterback a second contract, right? We haven't done that in forever, um, and so we need a quarterback that earns that second, contract that just blows it out of the water. Along with that, it's a matter of seeing where we are defensively. I do think this year, while the cornerbacks concern me a little bit, I think we're going to see, compared to the last handful of years, we're going to see some linebacker play that we haven't seen. It's the style that uh, Quinn has played everywhere that he's gone. Linebackers make plays. Not that the defensive line doesn't, but he has linebackers flying all over the field. And I think we're going to see that. Um, but again, we're a young team. We're a learning team. We're a team that's still gelling. There's a reason why we gave a lot of 1 and 2 year contracts, not only just to prove it, but because we know we're going to be looking to improve on even on some of that talent moving down the road. Our offensive line, I still think, has a long way to go to be a truly contending offensive line if you're trying to make it deep into the playoffs. Um, but with all that being said, I see Washington at a 7-10 record.
Okay. All right.
So
Seven
that's
and
almost
10.
doubling our wins last year. Um, but I I was at 7-10 basically after the draft, and I was waiting to see if the needle moved up or down. I didn't figure it would go down, maybe one game, maybe to 6 at the worst, but potentially it could go up a couple games, 8 wins, maybe 9. But nothing has really moved me off of that 7-win number.
Okay. All right. 7 and 10. All right. Well, look, man. My outlook for this season, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier about the recipe for success for Washington, right? Um, on the offensive side, I think the skill set of Jane Daniels, meaning his mobility and athleticism, and I think we truly have an offensive coordinator in Cliff that will play to the strength. So, in other words, if the offensive line has some issues up front, Cliff is not going to call the game where you drop back and throw the ball 50 times the way Eric Bieniemy did with Sam Howell. He's going to go to the quick game, maybe try to run. He's going to be willing to make some kind of adjustment to try to allow the offense to be successful. So because of that, I think the combination of Cliff Kingsbury and athleticism and who we all think Jake Daniels is as a quarterback is going to hide some of the offensive line deficiencies. And so the offensive line, in my opinion, won't look as bad, but they won't be a top 10 unit either. And I think that Adam Pease and Dan Quinn will continue to try to upgrade that offensive line down the road. But this is year one. They can't address all the needs in 1 year. So I think they will keep looking next year. But I think the offensive line won't look as bad. They will look improved due to Cliff and Jake Daniels. Defensively, you're right. I think linebacker play has improved. I'm not a confident that our defensive ends has improved. There's a lot of hope for Cleveland Farrell to finally put it together after being in this league. I mean, he's on his third team, I think, maybe second. I can't remember where he was drafted. Then Dorrance Armstrong, right? We know Dorrance Armstrong was our big defensive end pass rusher signing that Dan Quinn brought from Dallas. And I'm not trying to knock the players because, trust me, I want these guys to really ball out. But I can't help but understand that Dorrance Armstrong was playing opposite of Lawrence and Dexter Lawrence, and not Dexter Lawrence, but Lawrence, and opposite of
Parsons.
Michael Parsons. Those guys got the attention, and it freed up a guy like Dorrance Armstrong. And kudos to him for maximizing and allow him to be a high price free agent that he lands in Washington. But in Washington, he's the guy. He's the guy that other teams will game plan for. He's the guy that teams will chip as their backs are running out, tight ends going out into pass coverage and things. He's the guy that teams are going to be trying to double team. So when you're the guy, it's a little bit different. So I need to see, and I hope that he is the guy. Dante Fowler, again, situational pass rusher. I know he came over from Dallas because of Dan Quinn, but I don't recall him just lighting it up in Dallas. But he's just one of the Dan Quinn guys, and so he's followed Dan Quinn as Dan Quinn goes from place to place. Safety, for some reason, man, safety, I have no concerns at safety.
Yeah.
I have zero concerns. Between Chin and Quan Martin and Derek Forrest, those guys, I got no concerns at the safety. That brings me to the corners. The corners, I've been an Emmanuel Forbes guy. I think Saints Juice will have a bounce back year, but Emmanuel Forbes, unless there's something that we're just not seeing, and he's going to come out and he's going to have a bounce back year, up to this point, as a supporter of Emmanuel Forbes, I got to say, I don't know that he's going to turn it around. And with him not turning it around in year two, and now we're playing Mike Samerstiel and then the other guy, I think Mike Davis.
Right.
We're not strong at the corner position. And I know they're going to have Samerstiel playing the nickel and all those types of things. But if we're not strong at the corner position, it doesn't matter about that pass rush, brother.
Right.
And so I still have some concerns. Now, what I'm confident in is that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt will dial up and scheme up something just as Cliff would do on the offensive side when the line is not doing well. I think they will try to scheme up something to try to maximize what they have, which is totally different from what Del Rio and Ron Rivera did last year. Right. It's like they just lined up and said, well, it's your job, go do it. And they never tried to scheme up something different when it wasn't working.
Right.
That being said, I arrived at, because in years past, I will say this, in years past, your boy drinks the Kool-Aid, the excitement is all there, let's go. And normally I predict 10 wins, and it never works out. So with all that said, man, I am going to look at this as a chance to kind of rebuild this thing and get it going in the right direction. But I too arrived at 7 wins. I got this as a 7-10 team. But unfortunately, this is not a 17-10 where we're like, man, this is terrible. You need to fire everybody. To me, this is a 7-win team where I think late in the season we might be in the hunt, right? But realistically, we're not going to make the playoffs. But man, we're a solid team. And they're going to be talking about how this team is going to be looking next season. I think this is going to be a strong competitive, hard team, and your talking heads on the national media will be talking about, man, Washington only won 7 games, but you got to watch out for those guys next year. We're kind of like we're going to be the next the Detroit Lions, right? People looking at us to get it together, another off season, free agency, and all those things. And this is going to be a different 7-10 team as opposed to some of the teams that we had under the Ron Rivera era. But I'm going to go with seven wins this year, man.
Very good. And with that, I looked the past couple of years. 7 wins typically, depending on how many 7-win teams there are, it normally puts you at uh, anywhere between seventh pick and 11th pick, somewhere in there. So you're still borderline a top 10 pick. But when you have the quarterback figured out, it makes picking whether you're at number 2 or whether you're at number 22 or 32, it makes it a whole lot easier once you have the quarterback figured out. And I'll ask you, we both went with 7 wins, 10 losses. What do you think? What's the barring any kind of major injuries, everybody going down or whatever? What's the worst and what's the best you think that Washington Commanders can do
Record wise,
record wise?
I'm going to say the ceiling is 10 wins.
Okay.
Um, I still don't think this team gets below 6 or 7 wins, man. I just
Right.
think the talent on the team is the floor. The floor has been raised, if you will.
Right. Right.
And even with that, I think Mariota and some of these guys that they have in the backup quarterback can still perform. And I think just the scheme and the setup that we have, the foundation of the team, I don't think it's going to allow this team to be a 4-win team. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
So I think the floor is going to be about 6, 7 wins, and I think the ceiling could easily be 10 wins. If this thing really clicks the right way,
Right.
it absolutely could be a 10-win team,
Yeah. I
and they can
think,
shock the world.
yeah, I think I'll be honest, that would shock me a little bit. I see it as being a, worst case 6 wins. I think we're a solid 6-win team. I think we're going to, we'll squeak out another game or two at about 7 wins. But I think the top where we sit is about 9. I don't see us winning more than 9 games. Um, I would love to be wrong, right? I you know, it's been a lot of years since I've been wrong on the negative. you know, I try to my heart is going 100 miles an hour, but my mind is like step on them brakes a little bit. At least feather those brakes. I would love to have a year in reverse of what I've had for a number of years. To predict 7 wins and all of a sudden, to your point, come out with 10 wins. Oh my gosh, we'll be losing our minds as fans. With that kind of success and a lot of salary cap next year and the draft next year. When we see what we did this year on the draft and how they approached the draft, if that's going to be a prediction of how they draft, do it moving forward, we like the approach. So
Yeah,
it would lend well for a
10,
number of
10
years.
wins is a little bit of a pipe dream. I get that.
Yeah.
Um, but I tell you, man, if Jayton comes out and really just takes his thing by storm, I mean, he's good. He's going to be good for some wins.
Yep.
And and again, the defense is set up, I think, to be sustainable, to be a solid defense. Um, so yeah, it's possible to me. Do I think they actually do it? No, because I think that there's still some deficiency of talent in some key spots. We don't have, in my opinion, uh, a lot of blue chip players. I think we
Right.
need some more blue chip players, and we don't. When you look up and down our roster, we don't have those. Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner used to be blue chip players. They're still damn good players, but I don't
Right.
know that they're blue chip players anymore. And again, we talked about it earlier. Sam Cosmi got the contract, but he's not a blue chip, right? I mean, he's damn good.
He's borderline blue chip from from everything that I've been hearing on him the past couple years, his lack, his run, and then the pressures that he has allowed. But
Listen,
you know,
listen. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but the fact that we even debated when you know blue chip players when you see them, right? There's no debate, right? We know what a blue chip player
well,
is, right?
well,
We can
I
ask
think
across
I
the
think part of it is because he's had a lot of scrubs around him, so it's hard to see. You know, when everybody's coming in and the quarterbacks for the last couple of years are running for their lives, you assume even the best player is just mediocre.
Ken.
I
Look,
will say, talking about the
look.
prediction, you know, last year we were 4 wins. Real quick off of that, I had mentioned, I think if you take the base of 4 wins, uh, Jaden Daniels, I think, is good for another win or two. And I think the coaching staff is another win or two. And so that alone gets me to roughly 7 games. I think talent wise, we are better overall. I think you and I both acknowledge we're worried about our uh, cornerbacks, and we're also worried about our offensive line. We'd like for that to be better than what it is. What are your feelings about the wide receivers, real quick, and then we can wrap this up, because that's one thing that we haven't talked about at all, is the Commanders' wide receivers, because it's a big question mark for us.
Well, let
Besides
me
one
just say
person,
this. Well, let me just say this. I'm less worried about the offensive line than I am the cornerback. I think they'll
fair enough.
scheme up. I think they will scheme things that will protect the offensive line a little bit, unlike what Eric Bieniemy did with us last year. But you can't. It's hard to scheme up to help out your cornerback. You can
Sure.
do it, but it's a little harder to do. And so I'm more worried about the cornerbacks than I am the offensive line. That being said, I'm not too worried about the wide receivers, man. Because again, I guess I'm putting a lot of confidence in Cliff Kingsbury to being able to scheme this up, and everything that we hear about Jake Daniels in terms of his approach, his study, the fact that he knows, the way he's cool, the way he understands all the football he's played, having played all the snaps he's taken, not only from ASU and LSU, he's seen a lot, and I'm putting a lot of confidence that those things will equate to the fact that we'll see that guys like Noah Brown and Luke McCaffrey and throwing the ball out of the backfield, some of the screens that they do, I think they will. We just may not have a big play offense, but I think we're gonna have an efficient offense. And so I think that from a wide receiver, I think they'll be fine. Not to
Right.
say they're gonna send anybody to the Pro Bowl or anything like that, but I think they're gonna end up getting productive because again, Terry's going to get his balls. I think Noah Brown is a different cat. I think he's going to be better than Jahan. He's going to give you more production than Jahan was giving us last year. You throw in Luke McCaffrey. I think Luke is going to be pretty good. Then Zach Ertz. Then we still got Ben Sinnott. So I think they're
Right.
going to throw the ball around and spread it around to no one guy is going to stand out. But I think they're going to all by committee be pretty good. So I'm not overly worried about the pass catching group, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm including the tight ends in that. So
And I will say also for Jayden Daniels, I mean, obviously, athletically, he won a Heisman because of how he was athletically. But from an experience perspective, he's a rookie who had a lot of starts in college, right? He's read defenses, he's read the cornerbacks, learned offenses at Arizona and at LSU. He has over 50 collegiate starts, right? To where you have some players that they don't even start. They play a little bit here and there, but they don't even start till their senior year, and all of a sudden they have a great senior year, and they're coming into the NFL. But that is a huge difference between having a season and a handful of coming in scrub games versus basically 4.5 years of starting at the collegiate level. NFL is a different level. Don't get me wrong. but that experience goes a long way. And every year in college, he got better and better and a little bit better and a little bit better. So he didn't level out, or even Drake May took a step back in his senior year. That doesn't mean that Drake May is not going to be do well, but Jaden Daniels improved every single year that he was in college. So
Agreed.
with that, you got anything else, my man, Reg?
I don't, man. On the week one, on the Tampa.
Let's get that win. Let's get that win. We'll end up, for those that are listening, we will do a wrap up after the Tampa game, and then we'll also do a prediction each week moving forward through the season. We may have a bird's eye view of a game or two as well, and we'll let you know how that goes. But we'll touch base on that as we get there.
Sounds good, man. Till next time, y'all. Peace out.
Peace out, knuckleheads.